We started talking about depression. Just wondering from what we did last week, did you have any thoughts? Have you had time to think about what was said last week? I know one of the questions is that I went back and watched the video. Deborah asked why depressed people don't want to talk about it sometimes. But I can tell you one of the reasons why I didn't is because I had fought that battle all day in my head. And when Michelle would ask me what was wrong with me, I didn't want to go back there. You know, it had already been a constant struggle. So sometimes that's why they won't talk to you, because they're in the midst of depression. And they've already gone over that thing, whatever's bothering them over and over and over in their head. And when somebody genuinely cares and asks, you know, that's why they don't. You know, I had to tell Michelle, when we worked it out, I told her, I said, look, I said, not right now. That's what I had to tell her. Then later on, when I was able to think about it and come to some kind of understanding myself, then I would tell her. So it's okay to, you know, for a depressed person, it's okay sometimes. It's okay for them to say, not right now. But that doesn't mean that we forget about it. You can come back at another time and ask. So I did remember that question, Deborah. And that was one
Yeah,
of the reasons.
and you have to realize that I lived with someone and dealt with the depression. And it's very difficult as the person who wants to help. It's very difficult for that person when you can't get the person to
Yes.
tell you.
Yes. Tammy, was that the way you feel too?
I did want to say something that I thought about this week. There's different ways to use or look at the word depression. One can be, well, it's gloomy outside, it's just making me depressed.
Yeah.
That's a big difference than someone who actually has the illness of depression. Everybody gets down, everybody gets upset, but someone who deals with depression, it's a completely different chemistry, mindset. It's a lot of times it doesn't even make sense. I think one of the explanations for what has made me deal and struggle with depression is two things. I think it is definitely chemical, and it has something to do with the way that we're made up and stuff like that. But then you take that and you take certain things that may have happened or certain things that you may didn't set right, or I don't want to get too spill my life out, but,
Yeah.
but it can take, when you've already got that chemical imbalance, it can take those things that everybody mostly goes through in life, and that person just can't handle it like somebody else can, and they carry it for always.
Yes. A lot of it is things that have happened to you when you were a child, or things that happened to you as an adult. And instead of dealing with it at the time, you just push it away. You don't think about it. Well, I'm here to tell you, later on in life, those things are going to come back. And, you know, it's like you put it in a box. But once you keep putting all that stuff in a box, sooner or later the box gets full. And some of it's going to start coming out. And that's what depressed people deal with. We're going to look at some of the distortions. We're going to actually try to go into the mind of a depressed person and see some of the things that they think. And when you look at these, a lot of this stuff I didn't know until I got help and I got educated on depression itself, a lot of this stuff I didn't know I was doing. But when I saw it, I'm like, yeah, I do that. Yeah.
One of the questions I had from last week is we touched on that you're talking chemical imbalance, but is it like a hormone imbalance?
It can be, yes, it can be. You know, one that Tom Cruise got in trouble for was postpartum depression. You remember that?
It was what?
Postpartum depression.
That's like what women do.
Well, yeah, when they after they have a baby,
Yeah.
you know, he
That's
said
why
he
they
didn't.
call it.
He said he didn't believe in it, and he got in a lot of trouble over that. So, but that is real.
It's real. I had a friend
Yes.
who's the most awesome Christian girl, and we were together, and she had 3 kids. She married and had 3 kids, and each time her mom had to take the kids until they were almost 6 months old before she could handle them, because she wanted to kill them. And then she had a bingo surprise baby, the 4th one, and she said she never had it again. And she said it was just such a blessing to be able to have her child and love on it and not have to push it away and give it to mama for a while.
I know she'll probably, but she ain't here, so she can't tell us. So, Michelle, after Aaron was born, Michelle dealt with postpartum depression. And I mean, I'm gonna tell you, didn't matter what I did. I walk in the door, she would cry. I walk out the door, she would cry. I say, hi, how are you? She would cry.
Made her miserable.
If I didn't speak to her, she would cry. I mean, and it was rough. I mean, she went through it for about 3 months, and then she finally started to come out of it. You know?
Remember Tom Cruise leaves the spaceships?
Yeah,
So, I mean, it's.
yeah.
But you can also, there's just different types of, like, for women, there's like, all of your hormones can be way out of whack, and you could be up and down and a roller coaster all the way around, and that can make you just a hormonal mess, whether it's postpartum depression or you're in your, I mean, you could be in your 30s, you could be in your 50s, and your hormones could be crazy. You could be a man and your testosterone could either be crazy low or be just astronomically high, and that anger can rage, and I mean, you could be low and just be in the deep pit of the deepest part, not even know that that's what's wrong with you and feel that way. A lot of the times we can have not enough vitamin D or B12 and all those, and our levels are that low, and it can get you in that depressed state to make you feel that way, and you never really know it until you have blood work and think, man,
Yeah, well,
when
you know,
you start
Tammy alluded to it. I mean, everybody goes through times when they feel down. I mean, all of us have been there. But there's a difference.
But
Like
to
you said.
answer the
Yeah.
hormonal question,
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
Yeah, there's definitely a difference, but it's not to minimize the one, because when you know, when you're hurting, you're hurting.
Well, I'll tell you from experience, I've always dealt with depression, and then right before Christmas last year, I couldn't sleep at night. I was saying things that didn't make sense, went to the doctor, and I found out I was in full-blown menopause. So you put that on top of a dress, just
Yes,
no coping skills,
yes,
anxiety,
yeah.
just, so yes, you put that on top of it, and you're a mess.
I remembered what I was trying to say last week, and trying to describe how depression makes, well, the way it made me feel. And one was, you know, I said, imagine losing somebody that is very close to you. That's sadness. And then, you know, as a young kid, all of us had the breath knocked out of us. Remember how that feels? You can't get your breath. No matter what you do, you can't get your breath. Also, have you ever had someone hold you and you can't get away? I mean, you're stuck. No matter what you do, you can't get away from it.
You're suffocating.
Yeah, you're suffocating. And the other one was total absence of peace. None. You can't find it. Put all that together, all those emotions, all those feelings, and that gives you some idea of what depressed people feel. And most of the time it's on a daily basis. And there are certain things that will make it worse. And, we talked about some of those last week, about things people say to us in church. They think they're helping, but they're really not. They're just pushing you further and further down. I think
It's
Rick,
because they make you feel guilty, because you're a Christian, you're not supposed to feel that way.
yes,
It makes
yes,
you feel guilty.
yes. Older generation, my parents, and I'm sure your parents, they didn't talk about that kind of stuff.
There's a lot of things they did talk about.
Yeah.
That's true.
I grew up in a family where you didn't show emotion. That's not to say anything bad about my family. I mean, I know they loved me and I loved them. But you didn't show a lot of emotion. That wasn't what men did. What's one of the things I remember, men don't cry. But they do. We all do.
And that should be what have to.
Yes, and it's completely fine to cry. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, that's a response that's given to us from God to help us deal with things. We all cry.
Don't be pointing fingers at me.
Cried when I was coming down the aisle.
Well, I did. I cried when Michelle was coming down the aisle, so. But I find the older I get, the more I cry.
For different reasons, she's all about the time.
Oh, hey. Oh, you're in trouble
Yeah.
now.
But, Rick, can you pull that up for me? The cognitive distortions?
This one?
Yeah.
How can you say that?
He's gonna blow it up for us.
Well, I'll make it bigger. Chill.
Too big. I'm just kidding.
Filtering.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, we got it now. Filtering, taking negative details and magnifying them while filtering out all that positive aspects of a situation. For instance, a person may pick out a single unpleasant detail and dwell exclusively so that their vision, that their version of the reality becomes darkened or distorted. So, right? Yeah.
And as a person who, particularly the person that was that way, it's hard on the other person too.
Mhm.
It's hard on Michelle.
Yeah, it is, and I know it is.
Hard on and it is,
Yeah.
you
But I mean,
know.
I told her the other day that I was.
Well, the thing about it is, he don't know what to do, and he tries to fix it. And so-
Yeah,
You
sometimes
can't
you
fix
can't.
it.
Yeah.
Can't.
I mean, all right, you could tell me, Dan, you're a great looking guy, you're smart, you're awesome. You do everything right. And, everybody wants to be like you. And then say, but.
And you only hear the but.
I only hear the but.
Yeah.
So that's what you only hear that one word. But.
You hear the negative aspect.
Yeah, and you dwell on it. Polarized thinking, or black and white thinking that things are either black or white, we have to be perfect, or we're a failure, there's no middle ground. We place people in situations, either categories with no shades of gray, or allowing for the complexity of most people in situations. If your performance falls short of perfect, you see yourself as a total failure. So Dan, if I went 4 for 5 in a game, I would beat myself up because I didn't go 5 for 5. Or if I couldn't come up with that ground ball, beat myself up. if I wouldn't, if something happened to, one of my children or my family and I wasn't there, I would beat myself up because I wasn't there. So,
But no, it's not only that, but you look at other people as there's no gray area.
no,
That person,
no.
that person either has to be the way you want them to be. You want the person you deal with to be perfect.
And you know who you want to be perfect more than anybody?
It's yourself.
Yourself.
I understand that, but I'm looking at it from the other perspective.
Yeah, yeah. Overgeneralization. In this cognitive distortion, we come to a general conclusion based on a single incident or a single piece of evidence. If something bad happens only once, we expect it to happen over and over again. A person may see a single unpleasant event is part of a never-ending pattern of defeat. You're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Something, that one bad thing happens, and then from then on, you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. You know, you feel it. I know it's gonna happen. You know, and it stays in the back of your mind all the time.
It does, it breaks.
Yeah. Jumping to conclusions without the individual saying so, we know what they are feeling and why they act the way they do. In particular, we are able to determine how people are feeling toward us. Facial expressions. You know, I would read into people's facial expressions, the way they looked at me, or the way they might have said something. Peter can tell you that. For myself, I had to, you know, I would talk to Peter and I would catch on to one word and I'm thinking, and I would leave and then the whole day I would think about it. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? And then I'd come back to Peter and I'd say, hey Peter, just for me, I know it sounds a little crazy, but what did you mean when you said this? So I've done that more than once.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and
But it's good,
yeah,
because if you just stayed there, you would lean towards the negative conclusion.
yes,
So by addressing it, you gave me the opportunity to right the miscommunication so that we can just put that direct.
yes. And he was, you know, I can't tell you how good he was or great he was for me. But he knew what was happening to me, and he made himself available to me. And I could ask those questions, those hard questions, and he would answer them for me. Yes, ma'am.
Can you still have these situations but not show outwardly as what we would visualize as a depressed person?
Yes.
More of a manic person, but more that everything is seems fine, but they still grab a hold of these items.
Yes.
And really don't notice, and they may not even notice what they're doing.
Well, that's what I told you when I went to the program. All of this stuff, I didn't know I was doing it until I learned about it, and then I realized, I'm doing all of this stuff. So somebody who doesn't deal with it, how are they going to know? That if you don't have a loved one that's dealing with depression, then you're not going to learn very much about it. But that's why we're coming together here in the church to learn about it, so we can meet people where they are.
I think a lot of people have this vision of depressed.
No, it's not always that way.
And that's why I'm getting clarification
No.
on this, is that
No,
the other way too.
I think a lot of times you don't realize it until the box is overflowing.
Yes.
You're talking about, you put it away in a box, well, you may not, or people around you may not notice until that box is overflowing, and then it's.
Like Deborah's known me most of my life. Elizabeth, Dee, did y'all know? I hit it pretty well.
Well, if some of the
Mhm.
traits. But if you've never dealt with it before, no, you wouldn't know.
No.
Because you put on that mask.
Yes, ma'am,
You put the mask on for everybody else to see
every day,
every day, every day.
every day. Elizabeth, did you know?
Not as much as far as how bad it was, maybe that something was wrong, but not as far as how deep it was, no.
I know Peter could tell because, usually, I like to talk. I love people. Y'all know that from every Sunday, so. But at the end of the service, I would make my way out to the car. I might speak to one or two people. I'd be gone. That was out of the norm for me. I know he noticed it, but I don't know that other people did. By learning about depression, you're going to be better able to help those people in your life and in your church family, because they need help. They don't need to be pushed down any further than what they already are. So this one, catastrophizing.
That's a big word.
Yes, I can't believe I actually got it out, but, we expect that disaster to strike no matter what. This is also referred to as magnifying or minimizing. We hear about a problem and use it. What if questions? What if? What if I had done this? What if I hadn't done that? You constantly asking yourself, what if? For example, a person might exaggerate the importance or insignificance of events, such as their mistake or someone else's achievement, or they may inappropriately shrink the magnitude of significant events until they appear tiny. For example, a person's own desirable qualities or someone else's imperfections. So that's kind of what I was talking about a while ago. Regardless of how good it is, you take it to the extreme the other way. There's no stopping it. Personalization, distortion where a person believes that everything others do or say is some kind of direct personal reaction to that person. We also compare ourselves to others, trying to determine who is smarter, better looking, which I already know who's that. A person engaging in personalization may also see themselves as the cause of some unhealthy external event that they were not responsible for. For example, we were late to a dinner party and caused the hostess to overcook the meal. If I had only pushed my husband to leave on time, this wouldn't have happened. But believe me, it ain't the husband, it's always the wife. We do that, control fallacies. If we feel extremely controlled, we see ourselves as helpless, a victim of fate. For example, I can't help it if the quality of work is poor. My boss demanded I work overtime on it. The fallacy of internal control has us assuming responsibility for the pain and happiness of everyone around us. For example, why aren't you happy? It is because of something I did. Have you done that? Yeah, I have too.
Now, Jackie, are these more personality traits that would drive people to really have anxiety issues?
Yeah.
Or are these things that are?
No, these things are actually what you do. It's your thought process. It's how you think about things. Now, can they make you have anxiety? Yes.
But are you saying this leads to depression or?
No, I'm not saying this leads to depression. I'm saying this is what happens
In depression.
within depression, when you're already depressed. So
But these are varying degrees.
it can be. Some of them you may not.
Some apply, some don't apply.
Some apply, some not. But most depressed people,
Apply.
pretty much all of them. Yeah, at least for me, in what I was able to learn. And There might be one or two, like, perfection was one.
Overanalyzing.
Yeah, overanalyzing, yeah. So perfection was one that, I don't see myself as a perfectionist, so I didn't have that one. Fallacy of fairness, we feel resentful because we think we know what is fair, but other people won't agree with us. As our parents tell us, life is always fair, and people who go through life applying a measuring ruler against every situation, judging its fairness, will often feel badly and negative because of it. Life happens. Things are gonna happen. But for
But a parent shouldn't tell their child life is always fair because it's not.
no, it's
Mine
no.
told me it wasn't fair.
No.
That's where I said, all the parents say. I said, play fair. I had a sister.
All right, let's hear it, brother.
If,
I think a lot of these traits though are, oh, I'm sorry.
I get you.
if you're having.
He said she, go ahead.
Or if, well, I mean, really though, I mean, if they come to you and they start talking to you about something, and you have got a real strong head belief that what they're saying is not, I mean, you ask 10 people, 9 out of 10 is gonna agree that she's not right or you're not right. So if what I'm asking you, if she comes to me and says something to me, and I know that, and because I'm the type of person that if it's her, you, or whoever, if it's a moral thing or it's it don't make no difference if it's my mama, my kids, or her. If it's black and white and it's right, I'm gonna stand my ground. So the question I'm asking you, or somebody that's got depression, do I say, agree with whatever she's saying?
No.
Or you're saying, or whatever? Because if you don't,
No.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if you don't, it's just gonna start a big argument,
Well,
because trust me, I've been there.
it all has to do with the way you approach it.
I have said, we will choose to disagree.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that, we will choose to disagree. And I'm
But,
fine with that.
you can't get in a battle with somebody who's depressed
Exactly.
and say, well, I'm right, you're wrong. You can't, that doesn't work.
No.
But now, you do tell the truth.
Well,
Because
if you do tell
sometimes
the truth, though,
sometimes her view of things may be distorted because of the depression.
Well, you
Right, but-
can disagree, but not all on how you say it.
Yeah.
It's gonna make the difference
Yes,
in how
it
the
is.
depressed person,
Yes, it
I mean,
is.
you might.
Tone of
believe
voice,
something that she does, and
not
you can
not
say that,
challenging, just saying,
where your thoughts are going or something, you
Yeah.
don't have to.
what if you look at it like this? What if you come at it from that way?
You can't be dogmatic.
Well, you and Michelle could probably have some good conversations.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Danny, but what I learned is, because I went through counseling too, and you have to realize that you cannot logically, because their thought process at the time could be illogical.
Right.
And you're trying to be logical, and you can't
You can't.
put logic and illogic together.
Well,
And
here's the
my
thing.
deal was, I didn't argue.
Yeah.
I didn't say anything.
The-
I didn't try to stand up for myself. I just, when it started, I just let it all go, and then I would walk off because I couldn't deal with it because,
Sometimes, and everybody does it, sometimes we try to fix it for you.
you can't fix
You
it.
can't fix it. You can't fix it. So that's where some of the arguments begin.
well, but on the other hand, after I had it, started last week, I got to pulling up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
She would tell you that I was gonna be there for her
Yeah.
and whatever.
Yeah.
'Cause I mean, I
And
didn't
that's always good.
understand, and, you know,
Yeah.
it's, I'm learning about it too, but, you know, that's the
I'm
biggest
just sitting
thing.
here trying to wonder what argument we had that was about being moral.
I'm just saying, I'm just using
Yeah.
that.
Don't go there.
I'm just using that example, more or whatever.
Don't go
Whatever
there.
it may be.
Don't-
If it's wrong, you know. I
See,
probably will.
see what I'm talking, the one word,
Disagree.
the one word, that's the only word she heard.
Right, and she's looking at it in a whole different way than you're looking at it,
Yeah.
Daniel.
Exactly, and that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
The whole point when we asking you, do I agree? Even though it, like she was saying, that it's
I
not.
just said we can choose to disagree.
Well, you can choose to disagree, Dan, but I still think you tell her the truth, but you do it in a loving way. You don't do it in a, challenging way, or, you know, I'm right and I'm gonna be right, and that's the way it's gonna be. You can't be that way. I mean, but you,
We've both been that way in different parties.
well, we all have, yeah, we all have,
Well, it goes back to the basic thing, you
Just
be
say
right,
okay
you be
and walk
happy
away.
with what you want.
yeah.
Well, a lot of these
Whatever you
things
think.
too, I see some of this stuff like, just from my mom, but
Yeah.
I don't see her as ever being depressed. But these are some characteristics that we grew up in our society with our folks and grandparents or whatever had this attitude of, you know, blaming other people or, you know, what was another one? Personalization. And, I mean, I'm sure everybody can relate to these at some point in their family, they saw it in their mom and dad, but I didn't really see them in, I don't think they were depressed by any means, but I think what you're saying is that when you become depressed, these things come out even probably more
Yeah, yeah,
so.
yes. Chris?
I think a lot of times we go, this is just what I'm thinking, between me and my wife, she'll come home, a bad day at work, whatever it may be, and I wanna fix it, just like you
Yeah.
said. I'm a man, most men wanna fix things. Well, she don't care anything about fixing it, she just wants me to listen.
Right.
So I think a lot of times we, whether it be a man or a woman, it really don't matter, but the party we're trying to help, like you said, don't think like we do. You know, we try to help them in a way that they don't understand. They don't want us to fix it, they want us to listen, or they want us to tell them what to do and not to listen, you know?
A lot of times he just wants you to listen.
Yeah.
He just wants somebody to listen.
And I think that as far as the conversation a while ago about when we say something to somebody, we bring them down because they think they're not supposed to feel this way as a Christian.
Yeah.
You know, I think we just need to sit back and let them talk to us and try to say, hey, you know, this is what you need to do. I'm gonna help you through this. We're gonna do it this way, you know. I think that's
You know,
a bad
that's,
step.
what you're talking about is the whole reason that, we started this discussion. Because the church hasn't dealt with depressed people or people with some kind of mental disorder. You know, it's always, hey, here I am. It's, I don't know if it's, a lot of times people don't know what to do, so they don't do anything. Sometimes people in general, and this is a loving church. I mean, you walk through that door, you feel the love in this church. But that's why we're doing this, so we can better understand how those people feel, and we can meet them where they are and be there for them.
But we should do everyone that way.
Yes.
Not just depressed people.
Yes.
People
You're
that
right.
are going,
Through a
you need to
divorce.
meet people where they
anything.
are.
Yeah, through a divorce, through a loss, through a
Yes.
death, you know, through a
Yes.
sickness,
Right.
wherever they are, you know.
But the depression is hard to understand.
Yeah.
And what I was gonna say was, people who aren't depressed people who've never experienced somebody in their family with depression may not, because they don't understand it or they never seen it, they might not understand the signs and symptoms or think about what depression truly is.
Yeah.
Because they may not,
Yeah.
they don't see those signs, they don't understand it.
I
They
hope-
don't know what it feels like to see a depressed person.
I hope that's what we're doing.
Right.
And I mean,
We're
this is a
learning.
good thing, because if you have never experienced true depression, or you have never felt depressed in your life, you've never went through a state of depression. I spoke with a person today who is a very good friend of Matthew's, a very good friend of mine, who had a bad car accident when he was 18, landed him in a wheelchair. He, got a very good reason to be. He's a quadriplegic. You know, he said, I use that as my crutch. I use that to make me a reason to be depressed.
Yeah.
He said, I use that, but he said, in December, I wanted to say that was my reason to be depressed. He said, I had a good friend ask me, what, are you back on drugs again? He said, I had to snap out of that deep depression state. He said, because I was back in that hole. I was deep, deep, deep in that hole. And he said, I was still trying to find my purpose. And he said, yes, I was so deep in that hole, but he said, I had to remember those friends I had to lean on and those things. And he said, but I was always worried about somebody judging me or those
Yeah.
things.
When you're in that hole, it's hard to think of the things that
And
are good.
the positive things.
The positive things, it's hard to see the positive things. I mean, it doesn't mean they're not there, the frame of mind you're in, you can't see them.
And his thing was, nobody could understand where he was coming from. Like,
That's the other thing too. And I know you felt that too, when you feel alone. Like nobody understands. Nobody knows what I'm going through. Then you get to that place where nobody cares.
Nobody
Yeah.
knows because you haven't shared it with
Yes, ma'am.
but you know what he finished it up with was, I'm above water and I serve a God that knows exactly what I'm going through. And this is my testimony.
Yeah.
And my faith, and I was like, you're exactly right. You're exactly right.
Well,
And he can share it.
what you said, I've never felt this. I wouldn't have a clue what it looks like until now.
Yeah.
You just never.
Did we do the blaming?
No.
Blaming, we hold other people responsible for our pain or take the other track and blame ourselves for every problem. For example, stop making me feel bad about myself. Nobody can make us feel any particular way. Only we have control over our emotions and emotional reactions. That's a hard one. That was one of the things that they tried to tell us, that we had control over we could have control over what we felt. But that was a hard one for me. Sometimes you can make yourself or will yourself out of that place where you are, but most of the time you can't. Shoulds, we have a list of ironclad rules about how others and we should behave. People who break the rules make us angry and feel guilty when we violate these rules. A person may often believe they're trying to motivate themselves with shoulds and shouldn'ts, as if they have to be punished before they can do anything. For example, I really should exercise. I shouldn't be so lazy. Must and ought are also offenders. The emotional consequences is guilt. When a person directs should statements towards others, they often feel anger, frustration, and resentment. Most of my shoulds were directed at me instead of somebody else. I know that's true for me. Other people, things that you forgive other people for when you're depressed. You're not as hard on them you forgive them for the things that they're doing, but you're doing the exact same thing, but you don't forgive yourself for it. You gotta get to that point where you can forgive yourself for it, for those things. But a depressed person's number one worst enemy, number one worst critic is themselves. So, emotional reasoning. We believe that we believe what we feel must be true automatically. If we feel stupid and boring, then we must be stupid and boring. You assume that your unhealthy emotions reflect the way things really are. I feel it, therefore it must be true. You do that one too? Yeah, me too. So, I mean, does that make sense to y'all? Does that give you a little bit better insight as to where those people are? You know, like what we learned last week, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of people there. Fallacy of change. We expect that other people will change to suit us if we just pressure or cajole them enough. We need to change people because our hopes for happiness seem to depend entirely on them. I don't do that.
Yeah,
I don't do that. Labeling. We generalize one or two qualities into a negative global judgment. These are extreme forms of generalization are referred to as labeling and mislabeling. Instead of describing an error in context of a specific situation, a person will attach an unhealthy label to themselves. Mine were, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. You know, I'm not big enough. Just anything that I could, you know, I labeled myself with all of those things. Now, life helps with that. I mean, we all know how kids are. Kids are cruel to one another. And when you get a label in school, that label follows you most of the time your whole life. So labeling, it's a big part of it. You know, any and everything that you can downgrade yourself for is what you do. That's what you do. For example, they may say I'm a loser in a situation where they failed at a specific task. I can remember doing that, playing the board game, cornhole. I can remember doing that. We'd lose a game, it was all my fault. I can remember doing that. And that, of course, that made me I couldn't play because I always had that on my mind. When someone else's behavior rubs a person the wrong way, they may attach an unhealthy label to him, such as he's a real jerk. Mislabeling involves describing an event with language that is highly colored and emotionally loaded. For example, instead of saying someone drops her children off at daycare every day, a person who is mislabeling might say that she abandons her children to strangers. Always being right. Yeah. I had a real problem with this one too, because my wife had a different point of view on everything that we talked about. It doesn't mean that I was right, it doesn't mean that she was wrong. But we are continually on trial to prove that our opinions and actions are correct. Being wrong is unthinkable, and we will go to any length to demonstrate our rightness. For example, I don't care how badly arguing with me makes you feel, I'm going to win this argument no matter what, because I'm right. Being right often is more important than the feelings of others, and a person who engages in this cognitive distortion, even loved ones.
I got that one.
You got that one?
I got that one.
Right.
I got that one covered, no problem.
Yeah.
The reason
Look at you like that.
the reason I always walk
They have
down.
that problem. He
Yeah,
has that
because
problem
you
too,
could
but
never,
the one that
you
was
weren't ever gonna be right.
No,
You know.
never. Huh? I know he does.
I I used to tell Michelle, I said, why can't you just be on my side? Why can't you just, back me up? Why can't you just be on my side? All she was doing was trying to point out another point,
Another
show me
point.
another point of view of it. But to me, she was disagreeing with me, therefore she was saying that I was wrong. So that's, that would make me mad. And I get madder and madder and madder and madder.
Can't reason me.
No, there's no reason, no.
I am what I am.
That's the reason you should have.
Now this was new one on me. Heaven's reward fallacy. We expect our sacrifice and self-denial to pay off. As if someone is keeping score, we feel better when the reward doesn't come. I don't do that. I don't know where that one comes from. I mean, that's beating yourself up, thinking it's gonna be a payoff in the end. So, about time?
Yes, sir.
All right,
That last one, you would call that, the person's a martyr.
yeah.
They're always taking, being sacrificial. I feel like it's gonna pay off.
But, if y'all have a question, I mean, you're welcome to leave, but if you have questions, then that's fine with me. If there's something that you need that you don't understand, or maybe something that's happening to you, One of the biggest things that help depressed people is group therapy. And that's talking to other people about what's going on. And it's easier to do in a room full of people who don't know you. I'll grant you that.
Catch it, what call the newspaper.
But if we're gonna be a church that is a loving church and a church that is not judgmental, then we have to be able to tell one another our problems and go to each other for help.
Because none of these things, which you just mentioned, is what the Bible tells us that we are.
Right,
None
right,
of it.
right,
In a purpose-driven life, the first sentence is, it's not about you.
right.
And we gotta get out of ourselves and into other people.
Yes, ma'am.
One thing that bothers me so much is when people say, I have unspoken prayers.
Yeah,
It's unspoken because they don't trust us enough to share their lives with us.
yes, ma'am.
And those are the people I pray for the most,
And,
are the ones who say, I have unspoken
and if you
prayers.
can't say things to your church family,
Oh, we failed.
then who can you say them to?
Well, I disagree a little bit with that, because if you're in a prayer service, and there's a lot of details, a lot of dirty laundry, you're not gonna sit
No,
there and do all
no.
that.
But,
So
I mean,
think
you
it is
can-
better to trust people,
Yeah.
your prayer warriors.
Yeah.
I have an unspoken, God already knows what it is. So, it could be either way. I get what you're saying as well, but it depends on the setting, when you ask for that unspoken.
I just want us to get comfortable enough with one another to where you can come to me and say, hey, Danny, this is what's going on. Or I can come to Dan and say, Dan, I had a bad
At
day.
least one-on-one if not.
Yeah, one-on-one, if Dan doesn't know how to help, then he can come to somebody else and say, hey, here's what's going on. And not feel like that we're being talked about, but that people actually care and are willing to listen and try to do what they can for you. That's where we gotta get to.
And God wants us to be humble people, not put us up here or down here, but He's asked us to come before Him with a humble heart. And even to give these things to, even sharing that with our church family is with a humble heart. God honors that.
Yes.
But at the same time, we gotta keep it, we don't wanna be gossiping about people or anything, that is not right.
No.
And that again is biblical, it's not right. So,
What Jesus?
I don't think, I've never thought that it's like this church. when I started coming here. I think this is the most lovely church I've ever been to. I can come to anybody if I had a problem, and I know that they're not gonna run right here and tell me this, hey, did you hear? You know, I don't believe that. But as far as the depression deal goes, that's a whole different ballgame. You know, if I had something going on or whatever, I need something,
You know, I know,
I just don't feel like that this church is going around.
No,
gossiping and all that.
I know when Tammy's battling. I can tell when she is, and I ask her. And sometimes she might tell me, sometimes she might not, you know, but I know. Jesus when he summed up the commandments to the Pharisees and Sadducees, and he said, the first one is love thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy might. And the second one is like unto it, to love thy neighbor as thyself. That's what we have to do. Yes. Yes.
So do you think the Sadducees were depressed? Because they
No.
were sad, you see.
That's a
Saw that coming.
Let's close out the prayer, shall we? Father, you